Ready for a deep dive? Today we're tackling relationships, but not the surface level stuff. We're going deeper.
We're talking about how the world we live in, with all its changes, impacts how we connect with each other on a fundamental level.
And guiding us on this deep dive is Yasser Al-Hozaimi.
You might have heard of him. He's a relationship expert featured on the Arabic language podcast, Finjan.
And what's so fascinating about his approach, he brings together ancient wisdom and these razor-sharp observations about modern life.
It's a really unique blend. One of the things that struck me was how he's not afraid to bring in the spiritual side of relationships.
Yeah, he talks about how even our relationship with Allah is rooted in needs.
And I know what you're thinking.
Not talking about needing someone to grab milk from the store.
Exactly. This is much deeper. He explains that our relationship with Allah is based on our needs, but get this, God's relationship with us. Totally different.
It's not based on need at all, because he is, of course, self-sufficient.
Yeah, right. And grasping this difference is really crucial for understanding the dynamics of any relationship, really.
So true. And it's not just some abstract idea either.
Yeah.
Al-Hozaimi connects this need to the idea of Allah's constant presence.
Yeah.
Like knowing that we're always being watched.
That our actions, our intentions, they all matter. It's a powerful concept.
Incredibly powerful.
It's like this built-in accountability system. It pushes us to be better, not because we're scared of punishment, but because we understand we're connected to something way bigger.
It's about striving to be your best self because you understand the significance of that connection.
Exactly.
And it's interesting, he talks about how this need for connection, for something beyond ourselves, it's not limited to religious folks.
That's so true. He gives this example of people who, might not pray regularly, but then,
something happens.
Crisis hits.
Exactly. They find themselves turning to a higher power.
It's almost like this universal instinct.
Totally. When things get tough, we seek comfort, support, something beyond just the everyday.
It's like there's this deep down longing within us.
He even tells this hilarious story about a man praying that he wouldn't need anyone, to be totally self-sufficient.
Yeah.
The imam gently points out that he's basically asking for death.
Because let's face it, as long as we're alive, we're part of this world, connection is just a part of the deal.
Yeah, we're wired for it. Think about it. Who do you rely on, even in the smallest ways?
Whose presence brightens your day? A quick chat, a shared laugh.
We need each other, whether we admit it or not. And, speaking of relationships, Al-Hozaimi talks about the most important one.
The one with ourselves.
Exactly. He's all about authenticity, making sure our insides match the face we show the world.
He's right, He argues the bigger the gap between those two,
the more likely we are to feel,
negative emotions.
Yeah. It's like this inner dissonance, this constant worry about someone seeing through the facade.
Especially in the age of social media.
Oh, tell me about it.
We're bombarded with these perfectly curated lives, making it even harder to, feel good about our own messy, real selves.
Exactly. And it's funny because Al-Hozaimi gives this example of someone who's always going on about how selfless they are, how generous. But the truth.
What? Their motivation is all about what they can get out of it.
Exactly. It's all profit-driven.
And that lack of genuineness, it eats away at trust, not just with other people, but with ourselves, too.
It's like we're trying to sell something, but we don't even believe in the product.
He uses that exact analogy. He says we all market ourselves socially. To be effective, we have to honestly look at what we're selling.
I love that. Assessing our product. Are we being real or just projecting some image to get what we want? It's a powerful way to think about it. And speaking of things we're selling, get this, he talks about the waste products of modern civilization.
Waste products? That sounds harsh.
I know, right? But it's brilliant. He's talking about the side effects of progress that nobody really talks about.
The stuff we internalize without realizing it. Go on.
Well, he talks about how technology, while it makes life easier, it also makes genuine connection harder.
Like how?
Think about ordering food. It used to be this quick interaction, a chance to exchange a few words with another person. Now,
an app, a transaction, devoid of actual human connection.
Efficient, but at what cost? And it goes beyond tech, too. He brings up individualism.
Yeah, it's not inherently a bad thing, right? It's about freedom, being who you are.
But it's tricky because Al-Hozaimi points out how it can lead to isolation. Smaller families, less community support. It's easier to feel like we're on our own.
He uses this powerful image of us all being passengers on a train, moving fast, caught up in our own thing.
So caught up that we forget to look around. Actually see who's on the journey with us.
We're all rushing to some destination and we miss the ride, the connections we could be making.
It's so true. And sometimes we don't even know who we're riding with.
And that is where Al-Hozemi's message is so powerful, you know? He reminds us that we have more control than we realize. We have choices, especially in how we interpret the actions of others.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges, but what about solutions? What can we actually do with all this?
Well, Al-Hozemi really stresses taking responsibility for our own behavior in relationships, that is.
Our own actions.
Exactly. He even encourages us to, actively offer kindness and support, even if it doesn't feel like it's going both ways.
Even, and this is interesting, in relationships that feel, I don't know, sick, toxic even.
Right. It might seem counterintuitive, but he says sometimes the healthiest thing is to focus on what we can control.
Because we can't change how someone else acts.
We can't.
Yeah.
But we can choose to show up with compassion, with integrity, even when it's tough.
So it's like setting an example.
Exactly. Modeling what a healthy dynamic can look like, even if the other person isn't quite there yet.
Right. Makes sense.
And he's realistic, you know? He knows this is way easier said than done, especially when we're dealing with, the pain of attachment.
Those really intense, often unhealthy bonds that leave you feeling kind of trapped.
Exactly. He gives some really practical advice for those situations,
Yeah.
like getting rid of reminders of the person.
Out of sight, out of mind.
In a way, limiting contact, too, and understanding that those intense feelings, they're kind of addictive.
Oh, interesting. Like an addiction.
Yeah, that need to be connected to get validation. It can trigger those same reward systems in the brain as, substances.
Wow. So it's about recognizing we have a choice. We can feed the addiction or
choose a different path, one that leads to healing, to freedom from that cycle.
so much of what we've been talking about feels really abstract. I'm wondering, how do we actually navigate all this in our modern world? Concrete steps,
Al-Hozemi is big on tailoring your approach based on the type of relationship.
Okay, so different situations, different strategies.
Exactly. So a relationship that's really over, beyond repair. He's like, clean break, cut off contact, don't look back.
Rip off the Band-Aid.
Exactly. Now, unhealthy attachments, where there's that pain, that codependency. Gotta remove the triggers. Resist the urge to reconnect. Put yourself first.
And what about relationships that are, strained, but you can see them working out? A friendship that's gone a bit cold, or family stuff?
He says, take the initiative to mend it. Reach out, apologize if you need to, let them know you want to reconnect.
So it's not about waiting for the other person.
No, it's about saying, hey, this relationship matters to me. I'm willing to put in the work.
I'm noticing a theme here. A lot of Al-Hozemi's advice is about being more mindful about our relationships, wouldn't you say? Slowing down, noticing our own patterns.
Absolutely. It's about intentionality. And he stresses that we have way more agency than we think.
More control.
Yes. We can either let life just happen to our relationships, or we can choose to be present, to be deliberate.
That's a powerful message. That we can create the kinds of relationships we want.
Exactly. It starts by being aware, noticing our own stuff, and then choosing to show up differently.
He actually ends the Finjan episode by asking listeners a question. A powerful one.
He asks them to think about the last time they put their phone down, ignored all the distractions, and really connected with someone they care about.
Wow. It's such a simple question.
Yeah.
But it makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In this world that's constantly demanding our attention, how are we prioritizing our relationships? That question really got to me, as we were going through Al-Hozemi's ideas for this episode. When was the last time we actually disconnected, tuned out all the noise, and just were with someone important to us?
It's way too easy to let those moments slide in this, always connected world of ours. But he's right. They matter so much, not just for us, but for how we build relationships, communities, thought, everything.
It's true. And I think that's a perfect place to wrap up. So to everyone listening, here's a challenge for you this week. Find that time for real connection. Put the phone down. Step away from the screens. Be present with someone you care about. Have a conversation where you're really listening. And remember how powerful that human connection can be in this crazy, fast-paced world. And that's a wrap on our deep dive into Yasser Al-Hozemi's insights on relationships.
Lots to think about.
We hope you found it as fascinating as we did. Until next time, remember, even a little bit of effort can make a huge difference when it comes to building relationships that really matter.